In this segment, we're going to cover how you can add and use metadata to assist you in managing your libraries. Let's go visit the sales department site, where we have authenticated in as the site owner for that site. Now let's go and look at the General Documents library. This library contains a number of documents and is representative of a typical document library. We can see that the first column that we have is File Type. And we can see from these icons that we have Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, and even a PowerPoint presentation. Then we have the name of the file. And we can tell some things about these documents from this information. We can see that we have some agreements, some forecasts, some service worksheets. But we also have other columns of information here. We have some automatically generated columns that indicate the date the document was last modified, who last modified the document, and even a column that indicates the version number of the document. Although we haven't begun to talk about metadata yet and how you can use it to assist you in library management, these columns are actually metadata. They are columns of data associated with the document. And we're already benefiting from some of this metadata. We already know at this point what the version numbers of documents can mean, and we know what the modified date means. But what if you wanted more metadata? What if we wanted to go in and separate out the forecasts from the contracts, or the East Coast documents from the West Coast documents? How would we do that? Well, the answer is to add more metadata, and it's easy. All we have to do is to go up into the top banner bar and click on the Library tab, and then select Library Settings. Once we're on the Document Library Settings page, we scroll down, and here we can see columns of information that are currently available to our library. We have the title of the document, who it was created by, the date it was last modified, and potentially who it may be checked out to. But we see immediately below that we can create additional columns, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The additional columns that we want to create are called metadata, and they're very flexible. Let's click Create Column. This brings us to a page where we are able to create a new column for our first column of metadata. Let's let this one be the Region column. And for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to keep this simple. We're just going to separate these documents into documents that are applicable to the East Coast versus documents that are applicable to the West Coast, and we're going to do that with a column called Region. We have a lot of choices for how we can set up this column, but the one we're going to select is Choice, which will give us a menu to choose from. Since Region is pretty self-explanatory, we're going to skip the description, and we're not going to require that it contains information or force unique values. All we're going to do is put in East Coast and West Coast as our two possible choices. These are going to be offered to us as a drop-down menu, and we're going to accept the rest of the defaults. Then I'm going to click OK. As we scroll down, we can see that our new column is already present. It shows as Region, and it's a choice column. Now let's add our other new metadata column, Document Type. We're going to enter Doc Type as the name of our new column, short for Document Type. Just like the last time, we're going to make it a choice column. And I'm just going to paste in what our choices will be: forecasts, contracts, actual sales, and miscellaneous. This will be a drop-down menu that we can choose from, and the default choice is forecasts. And we'll click OK. Now, before we go to our document library and start filling out the metadata for each of our documents, what we want to do is temporarily alter one of our document library settings. Like most of the libraries in the LSG intranet, the documents in this library need to be checked out before they can be edited. That could really slow down the process of adding a small amount of information to be associated with each of these documents. So what we want to do is go to the versioning settings hyperlink, and on the versioning settings page, scroll down to the bottom and turn off the requirement, temporarily, that documents must be checked out before they can be edited. We're not going to be actually editing these documents, but the modifications that we make to the metadata are considered to be an edit by the SharePoint Intranet. So we'll turn that off for the moment and click OK. That takes us back to the Document Library Settings page. Now we'll go back to the document library. So here we are back in our document library, and we can see off to the side are our two new columns of information, or our two new columns that are waiting for information. So let's start adding our metadata so that we can use this information in order to sort, search, and filter these documents that are in our library. Now we could mouse over each one of these individual documents, select it, go up into the ribbon, select the Files tab, and then select the icon to edit its properties. And that would give us the pop-up dialog box that now has our 2 new metadata fields in it. And we could go through the process for each one of these documents to manually select the appropriate pieces of information and then save it. And you can see that it does work that way. But fortunately, there's a much faster way. If we go up into the ribbon and we click on the Library tab, one of our choices is to view this library in what's called Quick Edit View. Quick Edit View will make this editing much faster. Now that we're in Quick Edit View, all we need to do is to mouse over these columns, and we can easily select the appropriate information for each one of these documents right here in the library. To save time, I'm going to jump ahead. Okay, so I've completed filling out this information. Let's put the library back into the standard view. And here we are with our information. Now let's see what we can do with just a couple of columns of metadata. Before, if we had wanted to find all of the forecasts, we would have had to have read the names of all of these documents. Now we don't have to. Now we can just go over to the Doc Type column, click on the triangle, and select Forecasts from the drop-down. These are the categories that we put in as choices for that metadata, and now we can use that information. By selecting Contracts, I've applied that as a filter. Now I'm just saying the contracts. So I'm actually able to filter our documents by a column of metadata that we created. And we can combine this metadata. Let's go up to the Doc Type, click on the triangle again, and clear our filter. Now let's use the region. Let's just view the documents that pertain to the East Coast. And there they are. And if we just wanted to see West Coast documents, that's not all. We can use both filters at the same time. Let's take a look at the documents where the region is West Coast and the document type is Forecast. And it's just as easy to release one of these filters and switch it to the East Coast. And then we see the East Coast forecasts. This is just a small introduction to what can be done with metadata. It's a very powerful tool, and it makes it very easy to find exactly the documents that you want in very large libraries. It also eliminates the need for folders in libraries. Let's clear these filters and go back to the home page. And that's all there is to applying metadata to your libraries.